everyone, it's Vera from Ready Visuals, and in today's video we are reviewing the SpyderCube from DataColor. DataColor was kind enough to send this to us for free, so a big thank you to Liv specifically, but this is not a paid or sponsored review, and as always, all of our thoughts and opinions are fully independent. The SpyderCube is an all-in-one raw calibration tool that allows you to capture a wide range of color and exposure data in a single take, which you can use as reference points when editing and developing your raw files. For the past few months we have been taking this on all of our shoots, and it has definitely helped to speed up my workflow, which means less time slaving away on the editing pad. In layman's terms, the SpyderCube simply allows you to quickly and efficiently set color temperature and exposure in a raw image without spending too much time making adjustments. It's also an excellent tool for beginners, as it gives you guidance on how to correctly expose your raw images. The SpyderCube is a great tool for photographers whether you shoot outdoors or in a studio, and is a great facilitator of getting the most out of your raw files in an efficient way. I'll demonstrate just how simple developing your raw files can be when using the SpyderCube later on in this video. In terms of the design itself, it's pretty simple. The cube is made out of plastic and has this string attached to it, which allows you to hang it in various places. At the bottom we also have a 1/4 inch thread so that it can be mounted on a tripod. The SpyderCube has 7 key areas, which are the 2 grey faces and the 2 white faces on each side. There is also a chrome ball at the top, a black face and a black trap. Each area has a different responsibility, which I'll put up on the screen right now. Price-wise, the SpyderCube will set you back £44.99, which in my opinion is a little bit steep considering what it is. And there are a lot of cheaper alternatives out there like this, which you can get for under £10. They may not have as fancy of a design, but hey, they get the job done. With the cheaper alternatives, you won't have as much data to work with, so if you tend to shoot in tricky environments, I would highly recommend going for the SpyderCube instead. I found that having the faces facing in different directions was actually very helpful, especially when dealing with situations where there was a lot of color casting and the light was changing and coming from different directions. But you have to think about the money as what you save in time, which in my opinion does make the SpyderCube worth the slightly steeper price tag. So let me give you a quick rundown on how to develop your raw files using the SpyderCube. Here is my example photo that we'll be using. It's quite underexposed because I didn't want to blow out the details in the dress. And we have the model holding the SpyderCube. You want to try and keep the SpyderCube as close to the model as possible so that it represents the light being casted on her. The first thing that you will want to do is turn on your exposure warnings. Our next step will be setting the exposure and the white balance. So let's zoom into the SpyderCube, and you want to work on the lighter area as it is an indication of where our main light source is. Sometimes that's when the chrome ball comes in handy, as it shows you where your source of light is, and usually if this was properly exposed there would have been an exposure warning right here probably. To set the exposure, we will be looking at the numbers right under the histogram. They change when we hover over the image. So you want this to be at around 50%, right now it's at around 34%, and you want it to be 50% because it somehow equates to 18% gray card, and if I were a color scientist I would probably be able to tell you why. So let's start increasing the exposure. So you want to do this bit by bit and keep checking back to see your RGB percentage on the gray face. So right now it's in that 50ish area. You don't have to be super accurate with this, so as long as it's like point something, it's fine. So now we're going to set the white balance using the color picker, and let's hover over this, and because this image is quite grainy, you can see that the gray face does have quite a lot of variation in terms of color. So you want to pick the pixel that is as close as possible to 50%. So now that our white balance has been set, it's time to move on to our whites. So for this we'll be looking at the white face, and we want it to be at around 90 to 100%. So you've probably already figured that out, but 100% is absolute white and 0% RGB is the absolute black. So you want to keep your whites in that 90ish area so they're nice and bright. So let's start increasing our whites and gradually keep checking back to see if we're in that 90ish zone. So right now we are at around 95. And you can see that the highlights on the chrome ball are clipping now, but that's okay. What you don't want to do is clip your highlights on the actual white faces, as that means the colors have been blown out. So if we zoom out, we can already see that the image is starting to look a lot better and a lot closer to what it was like on the actual day. Let's zoom back in. So now I'm going to increase the shadows. So ideally you don't want to have any clipping on the black face right here. Now sometimes it's absolutely impossible to do that, so reduce it as much as possible without the image looking terrible, obviously. This is not an ideal picture as we do have quite a lot of grain in here, but I was going to add grain in these images later on so it doesn't really bother me. So the area where the black trap is, you'll always want it to be clipped as that represents the fact that you have the absolute blacks in your image. So you want this to be at 0%. So let's decrease our blacks a little bit. And lastly, you will probably want to reduce your highlights. So once again, you can use the white face for guidance. You don't want to reduce it so much that it becomes gray and you're losing those whites in your image. So you want to reduce it to a point where you're still in that 90-ish range. Here's what our image looks like now. And this is what it looked like before. I'll turn these off so you can get a better look. So this is how I use the SpyderCube to set my exposure, but I've seen some other people on YouTube do it in a slightly different way, so it's good to go out there and see which method suits your style of work the best. So overall, the SpyderCube is a very useful tool if you actually remember to use it. I have a bad habit of not using it as often as I should, particularly when shooting outdoors, where the light changes all the time. The SpyderCube makes developing raw files super easy, so I would recommend it for photographers at all levels. It's definitely not something that I would class as an essential, but it's definitely a nice to have, something that can save you time and will make things easier for you during the post-processing process. So it's a very easy product for me to recommend for photographers if you can stomach the slightly steeper price tag. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Let us know in the comment section below if you would buy the SpyderCube. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below as well. Aaron and I will try and do our best to answer them. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss any of our future uploads. And also don't forget to check out our Instagram and Facebook to see more of our work, and I'll see you guys in the next one.